23, 1-3 says, "But now, thus says the Lord, who created you, O Jacob, and he who formed you, O Israel. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And though the waters, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, nor will the flames scorch you. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior." God reminded me, he called me and made me his. A few years ago, I was on a job site at the top of Rockaway, spreading grass seed. It was a stormy day. The clouds were dark and heavy, and the ocean was raging. It seemed fitting as the day reflected my soul. I was discontented. I needed to hear from God. I needed direction. And I went to the only one who knows and understands, the only one who could give me peace. I turned to my Savior and I cried out. I poured out my heart as I worked. I gave over my anger, my insecurities, frustrations, feeling of hopelessness, and fear. I knew he was listening, but he was silent and just listened to me. He prodded me to go deeper, and I gave it all to him. From big to small, he wanted it all. He wanted me. I've known Jesus all my life. As a child, I asked him into my heart. As a teen, I dedicated my life to him and was baptized. But now, he was wanting more. I was wanting more. Desiring more in my life, and he was the only one who could give it to me. I cried out to God until I didn't have any words left. I was empty and needed to be filled. Psalms 138:3 says, "In the day I cried out, you answered me and made me bold with strength in my soul." He did answer me, and as Moses did, I heard the voice of God. It is an undeniable, wonderful sound. It's booming and gentle. It's powerful, yet peaceful. He answered my cry with 2 words, and looking back, I realized it was a question. Follow me? As brightness surrounded me, I closed my eyes and fell to my knees. All I could say was, "Yes, Lord." As I opened my eyes, the ocean was calm. Some beams poured through the cloudy, stormy clouds, and the deer who had been playing at the end of the road were laying down, and my heart was full. As Jesus called his disciples, he was now calling me. All I had to do was answer his call to me. How could I deny what I had heard, seen, and felt? I was excited and eager to go and to do what God had in store for me. But God said, "Slow down. You have some things to learn and some refining to do." He told me just one step at a time. As a runner gets ready for a race and must practice, I needed some training too. Over the last several years, God has definitely brought situations into my life to stretch and grow me for his purpose and glory. One of these situations is Open Table, a meal site for anyone who needs a hot dinner. Through Open Table, which I started just coming to be a server and to smile, God quickly used it as an opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone and grow. I've learned how to lead others, cook for a crowd, and be ready to see God work. Many times we have cooked and had food for 60 people, but served many, many more than we had prepared food for. God showed me that if we are to show up and be ready to serve others, he will provide the rest. God has covered me and comforted me and my family in the shelter of his wings as we faced our 4th year-long deployment for my husband, Dustin, overseas. God cared for the little and big things, and I saw our family grow closer together and witness our children step up when they needed to. He provided families and friends to surround us and to be our support system. These families and friends provided meals, prayer, grabbing my girls and hanging out with them to allow a phone date with Dustin, and making time to visit and connect with other girls. God provided these people to help and remind me why he created us to be together and not live separate lives. We need each other in the world. We need each other as the world is telling us to be separate. God continued his faithfulness as Dustin came home from deployment, and I really struggled in our marriage. I tried to fix it, and God said no. He told me to pray for Dustin and our marriage. We started dating again, getting support and advice from others, and praying together. Though marriage is hard, it is definitely worth fighting for. At the same time, our girls were testing boundaries, and God again reminded me to pray for them. In Mark 11:24, Jesus tells us, "Therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you will receive them and you will have them." I have prayed for a Christ-centered home full of peace and harmony. It may not be perfect, but I can definitely see God working in my family. I am a planner, and I like to be in control. Something God is also showing me needs to change. My grandfather passed away earlier this year. He was my best buddy. We walked together several times a week, talked most days, and lived right next to each other. He helped me build the home that we live in. I miss him greatly. However, how can I not be filled with joy, knowing he's in heaven with Jesus? A simple request by a dear friend to take her to an appointment resulted in surgeries and days in the hospital. She is a miracle, and God gave me the privilege to grow as I sat by her bedside and prayed. Nope. I want to do this. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future." Sometimes that future is here on earth to continue his work. Other times that future is walking and talking with Jesus in heaven. God wants our love, trust, faith, and obedience. From walking down the street and stopping to visit with a homeless person, or just writing a letter to a friend that he's asked you to do. Following Jesus means stepping out in faith and obedience, even when it doesn't make sense. And say, "Yes, Lord, I will follow you." He has shown me there's a time and a place for everything. He has taught me that we have a very real enemy and not to fear him because Jesus has won. I challenge you to ask God to speak to you. Listen and expect him to speak back to you. He talks and listens better than any best friend. I argue with him quite frequently. I really do. But he is patient, and I know he has a sense of humor. Pray bold prayers for healing for your marriage, to become more like Christ, and to have a Christ-centered home. And talk to your children about Jesus. A few months ago, my dear sister here asked me to help with the Falls Women Retreat that we were at. I was super excited and was tasked to plan for the children. I had fun doing this, and I hope they're enjoying their day as we are. I also felt a nudge to do something else, but wasn't sure what. Skip forward to the Falls Women's Retreat in October, and that nudge became a shove when God asked me to tell my sister I would speak at the event. I again argued with God that whole weekend until the last morning when I finally said, "Yes, Lord, I will speak." But I needed Hugh to provide the words. I like to serve behind the scenes and encourage others more on a one-on-one level. But God wanted me to test my word for the year and see if I had grown in my fearlessness for him. That early morning, he gave me the encouragement and the first of the words I was to speak. Over the weeks, my discipleship ladies in my group have prayed for me and were my cheerleaders to continue seeking God's word for the message and telling me with God's strength I could do what God asked. Even this morning, Miss Sharon and me were encouraging each other and practicing. So I stand before you as a testament to my obedience and fearlessness in Christ and to hopefully encourage you. I may not be fearless in the sense of doing crazy adventures, but I am becoming fearless in Christ. Fearless to follow him and do what he asks. To be fearless too. So be fearless too in your prayers. Ask him for what you lack. Put God first every day and ask for him to show himself to you. Ask him what he wants you to do today and every day and do it fearlessly. When you pray, listen. When you pray, it doesn't always fix the situation right now or even at all, but it can and it will give you peace and a different perspective. Be fearless to pray to God to show you what you need to work on, and be prepared to work on it and for some tests. Living for God won't be easy, and Christ never said it would be. He promises to never leave or forsake us, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. Deuteronomy 31:6 reminds me, "Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear or be afraid of them, for the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." Jesus is for everyone. He gives light, life, peace, comfort, belonging, hope, love, and so much more. Everyone has a choice. If you don't choose Jesus, you follow his enemy, Satan. Every one of you has a choice. I choose to follow Jesus, and I have seen the transformation following him brings. Who will you choose?
All right. Thank you for her support. That's so fun. Thank you, Marley. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to ask Miss Mary if you're still willing to share. Okay, are you ready? Okay. This is Mary Anderson. She is part of Marley's testimony that she just shared. So Marley spent quite a few days with Mary in the hospital, and we're excited for you to share.
Well, good morning. Marley Jo has been such an incredible friend to my husband and I with transportation, because I don't drive anymore, and I gave my car away, which was a blessing, because I won't run into you now. And if I did run into you, I apologize. I probably didn't see you. So if I hurt anyone, I'm sorry. So that said, I needed transportation to the hospital in Portland, Providence, for what we thought was just a simple overnight hernia repair. And I've been in healthcare since forever, and I thought, I really don't want to stay the night. But I guess my doctor had authority over that. So what ended up supposed to be only overnight was 20 days and 4 major surgeries in a few days. And who was at my bedside? Marley Jo. She said it really stretched her. And she was afraid to leave me alone because obviously I wasn't in my right mind. I don't know what my left mind was doing, but I don't think it came with me. But Marley Jo was there, and she prayed for me. She talked to the doctor. She talked to my husband. Our son came and spent a night. And that was a miracle in itself. And when the doctor called our son and said, "Your mom needs you," he said he told his boss at work, and his boss said, "Take however long you need. That's your mom." So he came, and he's not inclined to healthcare. Neither is my husband. He can put a Band-Aid on pretty good. But my son is even less skilled at healthcare. But he was there, and he showed tenderness, he showed caring, he showed compassion, and he even laid on my bed with me and put his arm around me. And I can tell you that that was very healing. When there's a rift in the relationship and you don't know what to do, and you have grown children who are not walking right, it's really hard. It's a fine line. So I said nothing, I just cried. And it came to a point where the pain medicine wasn't working, and this is important that I tell you. I've been in healthcare since, forever. So I thought, something is wrong. I'm not feeling relief. I'm crying. I'm begging God to take me home. I was ready. And I argued with God, too, that he didn't know the plan, but I thought I knew better, being I was the one in the bed. But that doesn't work, doesn't fly, because you're medicated. You can't talk straight. I can't talk straight sober. But I argued with God, and I told God that I didn't like his plan. This was not ideal. And God spoke to me, and he said, "Be still." Well, with your belly open, you can't really move a lot. So I thought, I am still. Well, no, my heart and my spirit was not still. And one faint remembrance was Pastor Josh, and this is the only time I faintly remember him talking to me on the phone, which he did a lot, but I was kind of out of it. He said, trust in the Lord and be still. And I thought, oh, God, you talked to him too? And yes, he did. Well, after 20 days, I got to come home and had home health and all of that entails. But I'm here today. Recently, I was diagnosed with heart trouble, and that was a shock. All the men in my family have heart trouble. The women just have this fluffiness called weight, and I hide it well. Sometimes it just hangs out. But I didn't have heart troubles, but obviously the test said I did. So I went through a 4-hour heart thing, and it was incredibly long. But in the midst of that, and I questioned God, why do I have to go through this? The bottom part of my heart is working 100%. There's really no chance of a heart attack. The top part of my heart, right side, is the problem child. It can be treated. I'm here today breathing with a heart rate of 38. Go figure. Our God is greater than what we can imagine. And I told the heart doctor, I said, you know, I've been told through many doctors with my liver issue, and that 2 things are keeping me alive. Number 1, my faith, and to God be the glory that they could see that through me they saw Jesus. And I'm a servant, and so are you. And number 2, my sense of humor. Well, I think that that's true. So my heart is beating. I woke up this morning. I'm here, and to God be the glory. And Marley Jo, thank you for being my special friend and for caring, and it did stretch her. It stretched me too. I remember one day the pain was so bad I begged God to take me home, and I told him, well, Lord, I really want to see you, but I want to see our son that's up there too. And God gave me a promise. He said, daughter, your name is written in my hand. You will see your son again. And that gave me all the courage I needed to fight whatever the battle was going to be from that moment on, despite whatever I had to walk through. And I'm here today, and to me, that's the miracle, because I shouldn't be, but I am. And they put me in 2 different case studies, and both case studies came back. They didn't compare notes, and they said 2 things are keeping her alive. Her faith, which is unbelievable, to God be the glory, and her humor. And God birthed the humor in me many years ago for a coping mechanism. It's not funny to almost die, but yet God gave me a promise that I'll see our son again. And that was enough to give me the boost. And God is not slack concerning his promises. His word is true, and he will be what we need him to be. And it takes friends to get us through. Lloydine has been tremendous help in years past with transportation again. Many of you have prayed for us. And we're here. We're here, and I'm excited to serve the Lord. And when I thought I was ready to go home, God said, no, I'm not done with you yet. So either I have lots of corners to break off yet, lots of stubbornness to get rid of, and stop my arguing with God, or I'm just not done serving him and doing what I'm supposed to do. So I ask God to help me be an encourager, and I hope that I am. I love the Lord, I love my husband, and I love our puppy.
You are an encourager. And she is an encourager as well. A very big encourager. Thank you so much for sharing, Mary. I'm going to ask Rachel to come up next. This is my friend Rachel. She's helped put on the event. She donated almost all of these awesome prizes, which we're giving another one away after she's done. So here's Rachel.
Okay, so I didn't want to share this story. I knew that it'd probably take longer than my 5 minutes, but something in me was saying it's a story that needs to be shared. God telling me that this is my story and it needs to be shared. And sorry. So 2.5 years ago, I was introduced to widowhood. And it's not something that you really want to think about or you really want to have to endure or even have that label stamped on you. I remember looking in the Bible and trying to find, what am I to do? Like, what is my place? And in the Bible, it only says to take care of the widows and the orphans. That's it. And I thought, well, that's vague. So who's to take care of me? Who's to take care of my children? And it made me realize that after 2 years down the road, that it was God. He is the one to take care of me. And he has done so by leading many people into my life. I truly didn't understand the meaning of grace until I went through this process. You hear a lot about grace, you see it on signs, you see it on shirts, you hear people talking about it, but there's a different level to grace that I didn't really understand. And it was based on the idea that it was God's favor. That's what I thought. But to me, God's grace is the forgiveness of my sins, the forgiveness of all these things that I did wrong that I should have been punished for, but I wasn't, even though I punished myself. So after my husband passed, I'm going to give a little background story on that. Prior to my husband's passing, we had three children, three absolutely beautiful children. I had just finished my college degree and I landed the dream job that I've always wanted. I wanted to teach and I got my classroom and I was ecstatic. It was everything that I could have asked for. Me and my husband's relationship became solid and strong. We identified the goals that we wanted to reach together. We got our financial goals on track. And along the way, we decided that we wanted to get our marriage blessed in our church. So we did that. 2 weeks after we had gotten our blessing, we'd been married for 8 years, but this was just kind of like the icing on the cake for him. It was he was a very simple man. He wanted children, a home of his own, and he wanted the blessing in the church. So I went through the steps to make sure that we could receive that. 2 weeks after our ceremony, he was killed at his job. Very unexpected. So I found myself questioning my faith. Every single thing inside of me was, why? Everything was so good. It was everything that I could have asked for. It was everything that I wanted. I laid my husband to rest while I was 5 months pregnant with our fourth child. So, big questions going on inside of me. My greatest fear before I met my husband was to be a single parent. To me, there's kind of a negative stigma around a mother with a child without a father. It's just kind of what society has placed on it. It shouldn't be viewed like that, but it is. So I always told my husband, do not make me a single mom. Step up and do your job. And he always did. And because he did those right things, God granted me and my children an abundance of grace. And I didn't know that's what it was until I had to continue walking down the path that he laid before me. And I can tell you there are many times that I questioned whether I wanted to stay here earthbound because my soul spouse was gone. And there's good men out there, and then there's really good men. And he was a really good man. He had about 300 people show up to his funeral, and it lasted a good 3 weeks of preparations and service. So that says the kind of man that he was. I don't know about you, but when I pass, even if I passed at a young age, I don't know if I would have that many people attend my funeral. But there it was, an abundance of people saying goodbye to a really good man. And because of all the good deeds that he put forth, he didn't get to reap those benefits. He left it for his family, which is everything that he would have ever wanted anyways. Because of God's grace, I am here today. So My story gets a little dark. After I laid my husband to rest and after everybody went home, it was quiet. And a quiet that doesn't really sit well with your soul. A space is missing, there's a void. I contemplated taking my life. It was to the point where I waited for my husband's family to take my children to church, and I stayed behind. The whole duration after my husband passed, my baby hadn't moved, and I was scared that he wasn't going to make it, that the baby wasn't going to survive because I wasn't eating, I wasn't taking care of myself. All I could think about is, he's not here. So, as I was, gets a little heavy, but as I was thinking about these actions, I had even planned it down to where I was going to commit the act. Like, I knew that if I had taken my life in the shower, it'd be less of a mess to clean. That's how serious it was. As I was about to do it, my baby moved. And the only thing I could think of was, I cannot hurt your baby. So because we had a child while he died, because I was carrying his baby, I still stand here today. Because I could not stand or bear the idea and knowing that my husband wouldn't forgive me if I hurt his child. So I marched on. And God placed really good people in our lives as we continued to heal, as we continue to grieve and learn how to live. But I truly believe that it's His grace because of the things that I chose to do between the passing and now. They weren't very good choices. Let's just put it that way. And it's nothing that, like, I've already asked for forgiveness. I know what I did was wrong, but sometimes when you're doing those things, all you feel is numbness and pain, and you want that to stop. So I made poor choices, and God forgave me without even me asking, and He continued to show grace. He continued to show love, and He did so by placing people in our lives. I can truly say that I am free of my pain and my burdens that I had caused myself. I still miss my husband, I still miss my spouse, and I still wonder who's gonna guide my boys to be where they need to be and help us fight the battles that we need to fight. But I know that God is working, and I have this blind faith because He has an unyielding grace upon my family, that if I continue to have faith, He will show us the way. So that is my 5 minutes.
Ooh, okay. Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate you being bold and sharing that story. Now we're going to do another drawing. This one, I believe, is it's a bracelet with some essential oils purchased from a local business. This essential oil and stone bracelet is perfect for aromatherapy. Apply the oil to the bracelet and enjoy the citrus scent all day long as the lava rock absorbs the oil for diffusing. All right. So this one goes to Flo Simmons. Yay! All right. We do have a few more speakers. I'm going to invite Rami up to share, I think it's a little bit of her testimony. So, all right.
I'll try to make it short. There have been some really big moments in my life that God was really loud. And one of them was, well, to start off, I come from a family that I swear the only communication is yelling, and it's just bad communication. And that led me to finding that kind of affection and love in the family unit. Like, I befriended mothers of my friends. Like, I'd go hang out with my friends and I'd hang out with the moms. That was who I am. They always knew I was going to do it. But that's because I desperately needed it at home. And I never saw my parents show affection to each other. So that led me to find out on my own what affection is, and that could be attention from the wrong kind of people. It usually is, and it could literally be anything, just a conversation from the wrong kind of people. And when I was 18, I got pregnant with Ezekiel. And one of the big moments for me there where I heard God spoke was when I was a kid, so I went to Planned Parenthood and to find out for sure that I was. And the first thing the doctor said to me, or whatever she was that parenting is going to be really hard and to consider aborting him. And my hairs went up. There was a fire within me, and I was angry, and I immediately left. I just left. And I was afraid to tell my parents, but because she said that, I needed to tell them, and they would have never wanted that of me, and so I told them, and they were happy that I told them what they said, and they were so relieved that I immediately came home and let them know. And they're like, "You'll be fine, because we'll be fine. They'll take care of you." And I did. I was still with Zeke's dad, and we still were young parents, but it wasn't easy. And that led me still continuing not knowing what love and affection was, and not having a solid foundation with Christ. I left my ex and then was in a different relationship, and that led to my first marriage. And that marriage was hard for me because I always had I'm a dreamer, and I always had an idea of what my life would be as a married woman. I love really, really hard, and I knew that I could be a really, really great wife. And with him, I didn't feel any of that. I didn't get what I thought I needed. And shortly after we got married, I got pregnant, and I lost that baby. And he couldn't understand that pain and didn't want to carry that, and would tell me, "Stop crying, like, what, that's enough." And it was weird to hear that from your spouse. And I remember at the time my brother was also grieving their baby, and they had their baby she was 6 months pregnant. She was further along. I was 4 months pregnant, but she was 6 months, and they also lost their baby at the same time. So we were grieving together, and he was like, "This is enough. You're too much for me." And I remember going to the bathroom and asking God, what do I need to do? Because I can't let this go. I don't like the way he's being. And it was so loud. And I feel like it was the first time I really called onto God in a long time. And I said, "What do you need for me to get through this?" And it was to leave him. I got out of that bathroom, and he said, "You're acting like a bee." It was really weird. And I said, "I don't think that you're supposed to be my husband. Actually, I know you're not supposed to be my husband. God did not intend for you to be him." And I left. And it was a hard, nasty breakup. There were too many people involved in. And that led me into, again, on the next track of trying to find what that love and affection is. And I started working a new job at a coffee shop. And aside from that, I was hanging out with people that the only way that you could have a good time with them was if you drank or smoked. And I was already a mother, and now I'm a single mother again. And it was really hard for me to try to understand where my life was supposed to go from there. I was out. For me, this feels like this moment in my life, I feel like it lasted 5 years. And I hold on to that very, very, very much, because in those 2 months of me acting this way, I didn't put Ezekiel first, and that still carries with me. So I would go out and I'd hang out with people, and I would put him to bed, and then I'd leave, and he'd be with my parents. And it was everything I promised I would never, ever, ever do. And I remember hanging out with these people, and we're just sitting there, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I could be at home with my child, and I'm just here, wasting my life away with these people who literally don't care about me, who could care less what happens to me tomorrow. And that was God telling me, okay, get out of that. You don't need to be in it. And I did. I stopped talking to those people, and I remember coming to work the next day so hungover, and I actually worked with my husband, Josiah, and they had kind of been a little fed up with me. I would show up late to work, but I worked really hard. I always work really, really hard, and they all had a meeting. I remember that my manager said her and the shift leads, and my husband was actually one of them, and we were just friends at the time. They all discussed what to do with me, and if they needed to let me go, or if I needed to stay, and give me a chance. And by the grace of God, because they are all godly people, which was amazing, they said, my boss told me that Josiah said, I think she still needs us, and she still needs to be here. And I said, okay. And so she said, get your crap together and figure it out. And if you need something from me, if I need to pray for you, if I need you to come to church with me, or go to my Bible study, then we can do it. But she said, get it together. And I did. I really respected her, and I said, this is all. I knew that at that moment in my life, this was all I had, and I could not. It would be a disgrace if I let the enemy overcome me. And so I started to surround myself with people that I knew God was using. And that's kind of hard too, because the enemy is very deceiving, and the intentions of people are very, it's all over the place. Sometimes I just don't know. And I ended up hanging out with Josiah and his friends, and I came home to my mom on one weekend that we came out here just as friends, and I said, I had so much fun. They don't drink, and I didn't drink, and I was still laughing so hard. And she said, yeah, because you don't have to. And it really struck something in me that surrounding myself with those type of people was going to change my life. And I did, and I stopped hanging out with the people who don't care about me and the people who love the Lord. And I went to church with Josiah, and another big moment that God spoke to me was when they spoke about divorce, and on and on and on, and how it wasn't right, and I wanted to jump out of my skin. I was shaking. I felt like I was doing something wrong. I was sitting here next to a man that I felt God put in my life, but then was being told that, oh, you shouldn't have been in a divorce. And he ended it with saying, but sometimes we don't listen to God, and we don't follow his path in our life, and we choose to think that we know which way we're going, and we pick that route and make the wrong decisions. And I stayed. I sat there, and he said, and God still loves you. He has grace on your life, and he renews you. And I'm glad I sat there. I left feeling so relieved when 10 minutes ago I was about to leave in anger. And that was God. And he was letting me know that he is giving me grace and that I'm going to be okay. And I did. And I was always a very anxious and very full of anxiety and full of jealousy. Literally, and I could not compliment a single woman because I didn't want to feel less than I was, even though that's not how it works. And growing closer to God, I learned that actually the more I was open to loving on people and telling them how beautiful you are, or oh, I love your dress, or whatever, or complimenting them on a talent that they have, that didn't make me any less. That encouraged me to really love the person that God has called me to be. I always had an idea of who I was, and it was completely wrong. And that really wiped away and made me new in that. And and it actually changes the whole world in my relationships with my husband and my friendships. And that's been how it's been for the last 8 years, and I feel a world of a difference. One more big, most recent godly thing is in August, I was pregnant, and I lost that baby. And it was a busy time in our life. I was about to leave my most demanding job ever that I had before, and I was so unbelievably stressed out, but I really wanted that baby, and it was really hard to accept that it wasn't the time. But in that moment, God showed me that the people He put in my life was going to carry me through it. And my husband was perfect example of that. He really helped me understand that it wasn't anything I did, and that baby is in the most heavenly place right now, and I will see that baby again, and that literally brings me so much joy. So much, like, these tears are happy because that baby's in a much better place than I am, and we'll be together again. And God, and ever since then, the doors opened up for me to be a worship director here, and then to now be in ministry, and everything I was afraid of my entire life, of being in front of people. I would literally have to drink in order to sing in front of anybody, and I don't. I definitely don't. But and I would want to throw up, and He took that away from me, and I praise Him every single day for the good and the ugly and the bad. I really do, and I really encourage that, and how to ask Him in every turn and groove of your life how He wants to use you, because that's the only thing that ever changed my life, was asking Him during every season what He needed of me instead of what I needed from Him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rami. We have Lana Mikesell coming up next. Another one of my sisters. Thanks for your support. All right, here she's going to share.
Well, I don't love talking in front of people, but I've told my testimony a few times, and right now has been a little hard for me because as you can see, I'm pregnant, and I'm due in a couple months, and we just moved from Boise, Idaho, and we already have a 17-month-old, and like the hormones of being pregnant, it's just been a hard time. We sold our house and then moved in with a friend for a couple weeks in Idaho, and then we came here, and then we've been kind of just hopping around and don't have a home of our own anymore, and our dog's been staying with Marley and Dustin, and it's just been a weird time. But yeah, I thought, like, it's a good time to share if I'm having a hard time because, because I know, like, he'll get us through it. And I don't think my husband's having as hard of a time as me, but I'm just very emotional. But yeah, theme in my life, like, well, I grew up in a Christian home, but I just fell away, like, out of high school and just got really big into drinking and drugs and, was in jail and just doing a lot of, crazy stuff. And so, like, so yeah, I just kind of, like, was doing that for, I want to say, not heavily for 8 years, but about 8 years of my life I dedicated to sin and just doing whatever made me feel pleasure, like just temporary pleasure, because I didn't want to experience pain. And my parents got divorced when I was in high school, and I just kind of decided that I wasn't ever going to be the one to get hurt, and I just hurted a lot of other people instead. A lot of guys, mainly. And just, so I thought I was an invincible and just, yeah, drugs, drinking. I was homeless for a couple years in Hawaii. I mean, could have been worse because it's a lot colder here, but still, it just wasn't a good time. And yeah, like, it didn't matter. Like, I OD'd and, should have died, like, several times and was in the hospital, and that just didn't do anything for me. It just didn't seem like, I was just very careless, and I just thought, like, oh, well, I'm still here, like, whatever, it doesn't matter. And it just, no matter what happened, it just seemed like there'd just be random people that would come up and want to pray for me, like, just total strangers, or people that would want to give me things, like, just, and my friends were always like, why do people always want to, like, just give it to you, like, what's wrong with us? But it was just always like, God just wasn't ready to let me go. And, like, and then drugs stopped working for me, and I would do hallucinogens, and it just seemed like God was like, you're mine, like, this isn't where you belong. And so, yeah, so it was just pretty crazy to just up and, like, well, because I was actually married to someone that I had met there because I was sick of being homeless and in jail, and the cops hated me, and they just, they were, like, out to get me or help me, one or the other. It seemed like they all just hated me, but but yeah, I ended up marrying this guy in the military because I was like, I don't want to be homeless anymore, and, like, and so that was just a crazy thing because I was raised in a home, taught that marriage was like a sacred, special thing, and I just, like, totally abused that. And then, so I'm with this guy, and he got discharged from the Army, and so I was like, well, I guess we'll just go, back to, like, my parents and stuff. But I had lied to everyone, didn't tell anyone I was married, because I just thought, like, no one's gonna, like, they're just all gonna judge me, and, like, no one's gonna understand, and I just felt so guilty. And ended up telling them the truth, and, like, not one of my my family members made me feel judged, and it was just this crazy, like, wow, like, pretty much, like, hiding, like, secrets is, like, what the enemy wants. He doesn't want you to be open and honest, because then you won't have help from anyone. And yeah, so basically it was just a crazy marriage, and yeah, it was a really hard thing because I knew it wasn't the right marriage, but I also didn't know what to do because I knew divorce was wrong. And so yeah, it was a tough decision, but I chose to send him divorce papers because he had actually left, and I was here with my parents, and so yeah. Then shortly after that, I went to a rehab that actually my husband had gone to as well, because we met way back. Like, we've known each other for about 11 years, and we dated before I went to Hawaii and he got sober. And yeah, so it was a rehab in Portland that it was pretty interesting. Like, it was really good for me, but it was also very difficult because I was one of the only girls the whole time. And so I couldn't talk to anyone, like, because I wasn't supposed to talk to the guys. And so it was a really lonely time. And I was, I'm a social person, so I was like, how can I just not talk to anyone? Like, this is awful. But pretty much when I did come back to Christ, like, the word that he's always just told me is wait. Like, because I'm used to adventure and excitement, and I don't want to just sit around and feel like I'm not doing anything, and I didn't want to miss out. And wait was always something he told me, like, it'll get better, just wait. And like, because I'm not patient, and waiting for something better, like, it's proven to be true, because there are difficult times, but if I wait and just lean on him and trust him, it usually does get better. And like, and yeah, this is one of those times again where I don't have any friends. Like, I have my family, but I haven't lived in Oregon for a long time. And I didn't grow up in Tillamook. I grew up in Salem. So, just it's going to be hard, but like, I know that, like, it's going to be worth the wait, because my husband's going to be building homes, and we're just kind of slowly trying to make enough money to have our own home someday, and we know, like, while our kids are young, it'll be a good time. They won't remember it, and, so it'll be like, whatever. But yeah, so, yep, I would say just the struggle of, like, feeling lonely, like, has definitely caused me to, like, just, okay, like, I know that God's my friend, but, like, when you're busy and you have a life, like, you just kind of, like, lean more on your actual, like, friends and people you can talk to, like, but God's the best friend. So, like, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lana. And we're glad that you moved back with us. All right, we have one more speaker, and then we're going to move to the Wyrick Hall. So if we can have Miss Sharon Schaefer come up, that would be so fun. Can't wait to hear what you have to say.
I should have chosen first because this waiting hasn't been good for me. But as most of you know, I lost my husband a couple months ago. The name of my testimony is Loss of My Partner. My testimony starts back in March of 1988 when I was introduced to Bill Schaefer. This mutual friend just thought we needed to get together. But we had both been divorced the previous year and were not anxious to get into any serious relationship. But that wasn't God's plan, because this friend of ours got us together, and the rest is history. We got married in September of that same year, so 6 months of dating, so I guess God had it right. I was involved in my church in Newburgh, and Bill hadn't been going to a church at that time. But I told him it's a must that we go to church together and worship together. Bill had no qualms about that, so he quickly attended church with me and ended up being financial secretary of our Lutheran church in Newburgh for many years. We also got involved with the youth at that time. and did a lot of things with them. Bill owned a service station in Woodburn for 13 years and closed it down and went to work for a lighting company in Newburgh, which is where we lived. I worked at the steel mill in McMinnville, and in 2009, we retired. Yeah. We had so much in common: camping, boating, dancing, and taking cruises, making friends all along the way. Okay, we retired. When we retired, we hosted at state parks, both in Oregon and Arizona. Needless to say, we had a fun-filled life. This bottom one. Okay. I wanted to quit the RV life and settle back into a house after 7 years of living in a motorhome. We rented out our house. My sister lives in Bay City, so we would make the trip out here often to see her. And one time when we were out here, she happened to say, "Hey, there's a house for sale right down the road." And that is the house we ended up in. Thank you, my dear. In January of 2019, Bill had a serious heart attack. Sorry, don't know why he said heart attack, because my heart's beating like crazy. He had a stroke, and it was a very serious stroke. But after being in 2 different hospitals for three weeks, Bill's determination, all of your many, many prayers, and God's healing hands, Bill survived. I was praising God the whole time as I believed he would heal Bill. When I brought Bill home from the second hospital, he still had to go to therapy twice a week for several months and continued doing exercises at home. Since we loved to line dance, he used his walker and would even line dance using it. So that was fun. Come spring of that same year, Bill was back mowing the grass, doing chores around the house. So God truly blessed us. The following January, Bill had his second stroke, but this time, got it? But this time, we knew what the symptoms were, and I got him to the hospital in time. So he got the IV and only spent 2 nights in the hospital. Bill only had, that was at St. Vincent's. Again, we were praising God for this miracle of healing. Prior to late August of this year, Bill was used to walking 5 to 7 miles a week, 3 times in a week. He was in pretty good shape for a 74-year-old. Unfortunately, he came down with what he thought was a cold. 2 days later, I came down with the same symptoms, and so we doctored it like we normally did, a cold. 5 days of having this cold, I called the clinic, and the nurse, the COVID nurse, said, "I am 99% sure you have COVID." Well, this last July and August was a really hard time at the hospital. Not as many staff members, so many people with COVID. There just wasn't room for a lot of people. But I called the next day, and we both went by ambulance to the ER. They kept Bill and sent me home. But let me get back here. by that time, we were so weak and sick, we could barely get a few sips of liquid down. But when we went to the hospital, of course, they tried to get things down us again. Bill was in worse shape, so they kept him. They sent me home. Finding someone who had the guts to put a contagious person like me in their vehicle might prove to be very difficult. But again, God came through, and Josh Myers, our pastor of all people, was my transportation home. Thank you, Josh. He had the virus already, so he felt okay to haul me home. But then what was going to happen? Who was going to take care of me? Because I was so weak. But my dear church friends, they came through again, and there was somebody there every day helping me with bringing me food. At that time, I wasn't eating very much, but they brought it anyway. And clean my house, just doing things that I just am so grateful for. Let's see. Our anniversary was on 9/3, and Bill that was 9/1 when we went to the hospital, and he was admitted that day. On 9/3, he had the nurse dial me up so he could wish me a happy anniversary. It was our 33rd anniversary. Bill continued to decline, and I couldn't do a thing about it. I continued to be very sick, but my angel friends took care of me. On September 10th, the Lord took my best friend home. I wished at that time God would take me, but he didn't. And now I'm among widows of the church who still do lots of things for the Lord. And I just thank everybody for all that support. I never thought about what it's like for widows that have lost their spouses. But now I know what it's like. And I thought I was always strong and I thought I would get over it, but you don't get over it. And as Rachel testified, her husband's been gone over 2 years, and you don't get over that. And the other ladies that are widows, that have been widows for years, you just don't. When you got a good one, you just don't get over them. I now understand that grieving process. I miss my husband each and every day. But without God, I wouldn't have made it through this, and all my church friends. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing. Sorry. Thank you, Heidi. Sorry. I couldn't pass that one up. Okay. I think we have one more drawing in here, and I don't have my list, so I don't know what it is. I don't know what number. Okay. It is the dancing. It's a gift certificate for a couple's dancing, I think. Oregon Coast Dance Center private dance lessons, a 2-hour lesson of choice for one couple, waltz, foxtrot, jive, etc. It's an $80 value. Sorry. Or a friend, come on. Enjoy a moment together where you can enhance your fancy work. It's Lori. No. Candace. All right. Okay, so we are going to break for a bathroom break because I know I need that. But a couple things before we get back to the Wire Call. So you all have stickers on your name tags. When you walk in, there's going to be matching stickers on one of the table place sets, like the table numbers. That's the table you get to sit at. So the idea is to mix it up so you don't sit with your normal cliquey friends. The idea is to meet new people, connect with others. So there's a sticker on each side of it. So look around, you'll sit there. Once you find your place set, you can walk over to the craft table and pick up a couple items that you want to do a fall craft with. So just pick out something you like, 2 or 3 items, and then go find your seat. And then I'll see you in there. What? Oh, yes. Stop at the photo booth if you haven't. We will have somebody there offering to take your pictures. Beth Weiss is, she is a local author. I don't know if you guys know. She's a published author. She's my stepmother right here. She has a table set up with all of her published books, including her new book on divorce recovery. It's pretty amazing. Also, we're Christmas decorating the church on Monday. This Monday, like 2 days from now, we need people to help. So 9 a.m., there's a Christmas decorating sign-up sheet there. And so potty break, head back to the Wire Call, and I'll see you there.